Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings, everyone out there in podcast land, and welcome to Heaping Spoonful. I'm your host, Kelly Bass, and if you've ever listened closely to the lead-in to this podcast, you've heard that we offer, quote, twice-monthly conversations with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with eateries across the Mid-South. Well, so far, truth be told, we've had more than 30 of these Heaping Spoonful conversations, and every single one has been with a restaurateur or a chef. But you know what? Today, we are finally checking the grower's box. That's thanks to Marshall Bartlett, our guest today. Marshall is the co-founder and the CEO of Home Place Pastures, which is just east of Como, Mississippi. So welcome to Heaping Spoonful, Marshall.
Great to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Sure. Well, the story of the farm that includes Home Place Pastures is a long and interesting one. And Marshall represents the fifth generation of his family to farm the home place. I guess what your ancestors started doing 150 years ago, but not the same way you do it. So tell our listeners how the business you run today is different than the farm that past generations, including your father, operated and still operate.
I think interestingly, the actual farming practices are probably most different from my dad's, the preceding generation than they were, say, 3 or 4 generations ago, because agriculture really became input intensive and around the 40s and 50s. They started using a lot of synthetic fertilizers and herbicides and pesticides. And so, the face of how people farm really changed. And we're sort of going back to some of the techniques that were done before that. My dad was a row crop farmer. He raised cotton, corn, soybeans on most of our land, and then had a cow-calf operation, meaning that like a lot of the cows you see in the Southeast, he had a herd of mama cows and a bull out there, and they'd have calves every year, and they'd sell them at the sale barn, and they would usually end up, out in the Midwest on feedlots. And then his cotton, corn, soybeans was just sold on the commodity market board of trade. So that was not something I was interested in. I did not want to farm that way, even though I'd grown up doing that. So right. I wasn't going to come home and farm until I came up with this business plan, which basically we go cradle to grave raising pork and beef here on the home place, and do it all naturally out on pastures. So we have a niche market, and we directly connect with the end consumer. So not only the ag practices that are very different involved in that, but also the fact that we're building a brand. We're sort of entrepreneurs in addition to farmers, and we're not just, selling our product as a homogenous product to every other farmer in the country on the board of trade. We actually get to connect to the end consumer, which is a really dynamic, fun, that's really what makes us tick. So I love that aspect of it. And it's also really empowering. I mean, we get to kind of hold on to control and cash in at the end of the chain there. My dad often jokes that the way he farmed, row crop farmers, they buy retail, they sell wholesale, and they pay the freight both ways. So I'm not trying to not farm in that style. And then there's a lot of other differences. I mean, it's difficult to talk about the history of agriculture in the South without bringing up some of the more sinister sides of it. There's a legacy of racism and oppression, and really exploiting the working poor, both black and white, in the South. And, while our farm was founded right after the Civil War, there were no slaves here. There was sharecropping here. And that's a legacy that we deal with. We certainly want to discuss and not sweep under the rug, but that it's something that we talk, to our staff about it all the time, and that this style of agriculture, we're not only changing the ag practices, directly marketing, but we're also really committed to departing from that past and having a more community centered operation that creates jobs, creates opportunity, and creates revenue circulating around in our rural community out here. And it's really, departing from that sinister path of agriculture and trying to create a very community and regional based positive future for agriculture
Sure.
Moving forward with this new model.
Yeah, and looking at your website, which is really well done, by the way.
Thank you.
Everybody's highlighted. And obviously there weren't websites in the old days, but I mean, you're right. In the days before a lot of mechanization, I mean, farms ran on the backs of sharecroppers and very low paid help. And, you're in a situation where, again, business model is different in every way. Business model is different in that, the end, or at least the restaurants that are going to prepare the meat that you have raised. And so you're one step away from the consumer, where obviously the old style that you're describing of the cow-calf business was not that way at all. And you empower your people, and, like you say, it's you're not getting rich on the backs of them. Y'all are all in it together, which I think is too cool. And, again, it's just the commitment to excellence that you guys have, and it's obvious. And this environment will let you do that because there's enough interest in the way you're doing business in raising animals and creating fabulous products that people are into that. But I never thought about really too much the fact that it really starts, literally from the ground up. You got to have good soil to grow high quality plants that your animals consume to produce the high quality meats that it's all about. So tell us about that approach and starting with the ground, literally.
Yeah, it's a lengthy process, and it's multifaceted in a lot of steps, and it is all a labor of love. And it sounds so simple, people think of local meat and they get a steak and they look at it like, oh, this came from my local farmer versus, the steak over here at Kroger. And I think the real challenge for us is when you just look at a product from the shelf and you open that product, you can't really tell anything about it other than the price and the way it appears, right? When you crack the package open, you're looking at a steak. But the story behind that product, going all the way back to its inception, it could not be more different, if you're buying local or from us than you are from a grocery store, from a larger supply chain. And that is really the story that we try to work really hard to tell without, beating people over the heads with it. It's just sort of highlighting the differences. But yeah, to run our farm the way we do, we can't just look at these different production systems and kind of isolate them and try to crank up the efficiency, right? So that would be pork and beef right now for us, occasionally lamb and goats. We've kind of gotten out of that because the restaurant market collapsed during COVID. But for right now, it's mostly pork and beef. And then we're also adding a laying hen program this summer to produce eggs. But yeah, we have to start, we have to sort of back up and look at the farm as an ecosystem versus just these individual production systems. And we have to take care of the soil by adding, the inputs they need. A lot of that to grow grass is nitrogen, but we don't want to bring synthetic nitrogen in. So we try to use the hogs, waste, and compost to spread to, increase the soil health. We have to bring animals in to certain areas and graze when that's right to do and pull them off to keep them eating grasses as far as the beef goes, eating grasses when they're most nutritious, and then pulling them off so that the grass can recover quickly. And it's just it's like a sort of a ballet that we orchestrate out here where we try to work with nature and keep all these moving parts going on the farm side to really allow these animals to thrive and enhance our soil so they're taken care of at the same time. From that point, which is a very challenging, complex, difficult thing to do, we then run our own slaughter and processing plant. So the way I like to look at that is if we're connecting to the end consumer, whether it's chefs or individual households, what we're trying to do is connect them with our farming practices that we're doing out here, where we're managing our farm like an ecosystem. That's our commitment to environmental quality, our commitment to the humane treatment of our animals, and also trying to build this viable business, as a commitment to our community, as a job creator. But in order to connect those dots, we got to slaughter and process the animal, right? So that is a critical step and oftentimes a bottleneck in rural communities in the Southeast and in other parts of the country, but especially down here. So that is a part that we don't, necessarily highlight because it's not something that everyone wants to think about or talk about, but it's a really fascinating part of this process. And we happen to be one of the few farms that has a federally inspected slaughter and processing plant on site. So, ground up soil, grass, animals, then this issue of federally inspected slaughter. We package and process all of our products right here. I'm standing in the middle of the farm in our plant as we speak. And then, of course, the sales and distribution. So each one of those many steps is endlessly complex and fun to discuss.
Yeah.
We could do it all day.
Well, when you're starting with the soil, I mean, there's a whole lot of science involved in that. Does that have to be knowledge that your staff has, or do you tap into the county agent, or, I mean, somebody's got to know what kind of, when you're talking about amounts and the nutrients and minerals and all the things, is that, again, is that on the job training, or have you just gotten people who've told you how to do it?
Well, it's a little bit of both. I mean, I'd like to preface this by saying we take all the help we can get from any source available, because it certainly takes a village. But my dad, is a very knowledgeable guy about soils and, a lot of traditional commodity agriculture. I think people doing what I'm doing are too quick to throw all of it out, right? And there's a lot of really good, just practical farming knowledge from previous generations that isn't evil just because, my dad was a row crop farmer doesn't mean he was a bad guy. He cared about his land. He was just doing what he had to do to try to make a living. So I've got his experience, which is lifelong. And, we kind of struggle going back and forth between the sort of reductionist scientific approach where you boil everything down to your pH has to be right here. You got to have this much soil organic matter, your potassium, your phosphorus, everything's got to be right in these lines. And you're constantly pulling soil tests and shipping them to a lab, to sort of backing up a little bit and taking this higher level approach of trying to manage the whole system using nature. And so you're always you're getting data where you need it and trying to plug it in, and then also trying to take the whole farm into account. So I've really learned a lot of that in the last 7 years. And I've got, recently hired a really knowledgeable farm manager that's more on the, he's really focused on the genetics and taking care of the animals, and he's really knowledgeable about grasses and forages. So we're just trying to put all the pieces together, and honestly, we learn by making a ton of mistakes more than anything else.
Well, everybody does, no matter whatever business you're in. Well, your point's well taken. I mean, you got to take care of the soil to grow good cotton and good soybeans, and that grows good grass too. So good thing you've got your father there as your primary consultant. Well, the first statement on your homepage under who we are starts, Home Place Pastures is committed to the ethical treatment of our animals. But, that's to be applauded. But, as you said before, facts are facts. And in all the cases, things don't end so well for the animal. And, your team includes a slaughter manager and slaughter technicians. And I'm glad they're up there because everybody knows that's what's happened. But that's got to be a tough part of the job. And I guess something everybody just kind of has to get used to.
Yeah. I mean, if you intend to eat them, you certainly have to get used to that. And
true.
It is it's a very somber responsibility. I mean, that's kind of how I like to put it. But on the other end of that, I don't have to load my animals that I've cared for from day one up on a stock trailer and just ship them off to some, building place I have no control over. So we really take a lot of pride in the fact that we're able to control that part of the process. And certainly a necessary one, certainly one that carries a lot of responsibility for our internal principles, but also at the federal level, it carries a lot of responsibilities, for keeping our business going. Because if we make a mistake there, we not only depart from our commitment to ethical treatment of our animals, but we also, break the law essentially and commit a humane handling violation. We have an inspector there that witnesses every stun and every kill. And if we make a mistake, that's documented, and our plant actually gets suspended, depending on the type of situation. So that's something that all federal plants have to deal with, but it is, it's very intense at the regulatory level. And I think that has been a real challenge for small plants around the Southeast, and a lot of them have closed down. And it's a real shame because what you see is a hyper centralization of the meat industry, where you have just a few facilities that slaughter and process millions and millions of animals every year. And it's a shame, because these regulations are so necessary and so important, but the way that they're carried out is that the burden and kind of the regulatory burden is much more intensified at the bottom. In other words, really tiny plants are just killing a handful of animals, where the big guys that are sort of committed the atrocities that brought all this to light in the first place sort of operate with impunity. So that's a really tricky part, but I would like to say my staff, who came out, I got 3 people that work full-time on the kill floor. Carlos is our kill floor manager. They do such a wonderful job, and they learn this from the ground up. And I mean, they handle each of our animals into the stunning area, effectively stun them, do the whole process here in-house. And, knowing that if they mess up, the whole business could be in jeopardy. And they really carry that weight beautifully. And
that is a lot of pressure.
They do a great job. It is. It is.
Yeah, and it's your guys' commitment to the whole circle that, it would be a lot easier for you to just ship them off. But again, that's not then all of a sudden it's out of your hands, and you have your own butchers who then turn the animals into the beautiful pieces of meat that restaurants and we'll get to the distribution and sales model here in a little bit, but I give you credit for saying, this is hard and this is risky and but we're going to do it because that's the right thing to do. Speaking of circle of life, do you breed the animals that you raise, or do you just get little piglets and little calves from somebody and then take it from there?
We do both. We go fair to finish on a large part of our hogs. I run about 70 brood sows right now, and we're trying to pick up to about double that in the next couple of years. And then on the cattle side, we have a small cow-calf herd, and we also buy a lot of what we call stockers. So we'll get them in. They've been born at one of our producer farms, have been backgrounded basically between weaning and when we get them. They're just grazing, gaining 200-300 pounds, and then we get them in here and finish them on forges here at the home place. So that's really what we're focused on doing. With hogs, it's easier to go fair to finish because their lifespan is a little shorter, and we really have a good model for that. With cattle, they take a long time to get up to finishing weight, so you kind of have to segment the supply chain a little bit. And a lot of the stuff we're talking about, shameless pitch here, we go into all the nuances in a lot of detail on our blog, on our farm blog. So if any listeners are interested in digging into this a little deeper, there's a lot of great information there. So it's also wonderful.
I read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. You got somebody that handles your blog for you, obviously? Yeah, no, it's well done. Yeah, I learned some things. Do you have a blog manager, or is that somebody writes it for you? We just all
kind of divide and conquer and knock it out and try to edit it. But I write a lot of the blog posts, and a couple of my marketing guys chip in as well. And we just try to churn it out when we can,
Right. Well, you really have diversified and continue to diversify your sales model, but people who are lucky enough to eat at one of the restaurants that serve your products, again, assuming that the website is up to date, and I know this changes constantly, so it may not be, I counted 104 restaurants that span 50 of them in New Orleans, including some of the bigger names that the tourists know, as well as Memphis, Nashville, and across Mississippi. So that's you have a couple of folks who are calling on restaurants and saying, hey, check out what we got, and they're buying it from you.
Yeah, that was that was basically 90% of our business prior to COVID was directly selling to restaurants. So we ran our own distribution, and we have a full-time sales person in New Orleans, Allison. She does a great job. I actually lived down there for a couple of years, and when we started this whole thing, I had some connections with some chefs down there. So New Orleans has been really, really good to us, and there's a tremendous amount of talent, creativity, and dedication to sourcing local in that city that is just incredible. So we really built our name down there. We're also delivering in Nashville, Memphis, all through Mississippi. I think that this was all, pre-March 13th of 2020.
Sure.
The restaurant industry got rocked, and so did we, and we kind of had to readjust and start doing a lot more direct-to-consumer retail sales instead of, to the chefs. But, the real tricky part of all of that was the distribution. For like a tiny business like us to be spread out that far, delivering product directly to that many restaurants, it was, around 100 a week. it was it's very resourceful. And if we hadn't started this thing when, I was like 25, riding trucks back and forth to New Orleans, working, ungodly hours, driving all over the place, I wouldn't have been able to do that. It just kind of, we realized that the distribution was really something that we are very vertically integrated. We want to control each part of the process, but running refrigerated trucks all over the Southeast is not my passion.
No, and it's nothing if not time consuming and labor intensive for sure. I would imagine. Right. I mean, again, we're recording this early in February of 2021, and the restaurant business, some places is bouncing back, and some not so much, but it'll get back. But I would think with fine products and the stable of restaurants who serve your products, that there's surely it's not all you calling them. Some restaurants must be calling you and saying, "Hey, we hear this stuff's great. How do we get it?" Oh yeah, we love that. I mean, especially within groups of restaurants, chefs will hang out and they all talk about their sourcing and where they get product, and nothing is more gratifying for us than when somebody reaches out instead of us, kind of cold calling them and popping into their kitchen, and that is a wonderful feeling. And it does happen. I mean, it's rare that business just falls in your lap. That we have to do a tremendous amount of work to get our name into places. But it is really gratifying to see that your customers that are buying from you like the product and like your brand and like working with you and believe in what you're doing to the point where they're willing to recommend you to other professionals in their space. And then their recommendation means so much to those other chefs that they will call us and ask for our product. And right now, during COVID, as you said, we are, really optimistic about these chefs being able to get back on their feet. And, but it's tough right now, and they don't have a lot of revenue coming in, and we're sort of the top item on food costs. So, we understand that they're trying to just kind of do what they can and take out and stay in the game. But some of them, even through all of that, have continued supporting us, which, means the world to us. And, these are hardworking guys. They're job creators. They really kind of define the culture of whatever city they are in. And it's an honor to work with them. And we know they're hurting. And we're just hoping that, everybody comes back on their feet here in a few months. Well, people will be listening to this all over the universe, hopefully for years to come. But right now we're waiting on the next round of federal relief, and it's coming, and it'll help restaurants a lot. So that's great news for all of us. All right, we're going to take a short break here on Heaping Spoonful, and we're going to be back in just a bit with Marshall Bartlett of Home Place Pastures.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful. Our guest today is Marshall Bartlett. He's the co-founder and CEO of Home Place Pastures on the family farm just outside Como, Mississippi. Now, before the break, Marshall, we were talking about the way you get your products to the people. And again, pre-COVID and still some now, it's sending it to restaurants. But you have a much more direct sales model. And I'm intrigued to know about your sales of I could buy a whole or a half cow or a whole or a half hog. So we're talking 600 pounds of meat, maybe for a whole cow, and about 200 for a whole hog. And that is a whole lot of meat. I'm trying to picture who it is that might be buying those sorts of things from you guys.
Yeah. From the rooter to the tutor, as they say, you can buy the whole thing. And we do, we do either whole or half hogs, or you can actually buy the sides, the unbutchered whole hog and take it home and cook it, or butcher yourself. A lot of restaurants do that. But we also, what's really popular is find the whole animal on the rail weight, and then we butcher it to your specs and vacuum seal it, freeze it, and then you take it home and build up. And now, what we found is, we're out here in the country, and out here we like to stock up. We like to be ready and have a full freezer. And especially when the pandemic hit, a lot of people were interested in that because the grocery stores ran out of meat there for a little while. So we found a great source of revenue for us to keep us going through that really challenging time, and also a great service for our community to be able to offer that. So basically you say, I want a whole cow or a half cow. We break it down, butchered exactly how you want it with a list of cuts and let you, the options. And then you just come pick it up and put it in your freezer. And it's really popular. It's a great deal. And
I saw the per pound price. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I would imagine if I signed up, I'd be looking for a bunch of other people who have a deep freeze that are my buddies. And then we're going to buy the meat, and then we're going to have a good time cooking it and hanging out, drinking beer and talking about it. So,
cool. That's probably people go in with their neighbors, friends, and it's a big, we have people drive from as far away as like Louisiana, like 4 or 5 hours, and come up and pick it all up. And, and it's been a really popular program. So, and, credit to my sales team kind of putting that together in a great way. I mean, that was a big move for us to get us through the summer with no restaurants, and it continues to be a great program for us and for our customers. And that's only something you can do if you link up with, directly to your farmer who's raising it and processing it right here on site. Well,
that's one thing I just now thinking about is, you can pause. Clearly, you have to pause deliveries to restaurants who aren't open, but the animals continue to grow, and that you can't just put them in a holding pattern forever. So this is a great way. But those who are listening thinking, I'm probably not in the market for even a half of a hog, that you have a really cool monthly subscription. So you've got a monthly box, and people can get from 5 pounds to 12 pounds of assorted meats for, the low price is $65. So, you don't have to have a lot of friends together to do that. Is this something that you also got going recently, or is this something that's been with you for a while?
Well, it is something we had prior to COVID. We had kind of seen we wanted to go more direct to consumer and grow that side because we felt like we were too restaurant dependent. And so we put together the monthly box or subscription. We called it the CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, and the website in really fall of 2019. And it happened to be one of the best investments we ever made because it literally saved our business during COVID. But we've developed it so much because the popularity, starting in March 2020, just went through the roof. So we really had to sort of change that program and make it work for households. But this is for people that just want to get a supply of our stuff shipped in, that love to cook, that believe in supporting local, and they want it to be convenient. And we send different recipes from our chef curated to a different cut every month that we think is, fun or seasonal. And we all love to cook and are messing around with this stuff all the time. So it's been a really wonderful program for us to put together kind of on the creative side to be able to connect to our consumer. And it also works. It helps us move inventory and work through this stuff. And our customers seem to really, really enjoy it. We've got about 350 people per month signed up for that right now. So
that's fabulous.
It's become a pillar of our business instead of this little side thing we were doing.
Well, yeah. Also, think about it. Obviously, you have from the consumer's perspective, which is, yes, I can walk into one of the restaurants that more than 100 restaurants that serves your product, but I'm paying the restaurant price, and I can now buy it. And I'm sure there's plenty of guys and girls saying, you know what, I'm pretty good at cooking a steak. I don't have to go to a restaurant to eat a steak. I can do it right here, or I can fry up sausage and make some great breakfast. But anyway, I could see, again, that, and it's interesting. Because I did check out your blog, I saw one of the more recent blog posts was about how to manage your monthly box. So you kind of let them dial up or dial down a little bit, because if somebody somehow is on vacation and the stuff's piling up, you want them to be able to have some options. So that's kind of cool. Was that a customer-driven decision? People saying like, hey, this is overwhelming me a little bit, or is that just something y'all thought was a good idea?
Oh, yeah. That whole program has been, purely customer-driven. We're just constantly asking for feedback, probably to the point where it's annoying to our customers, but we're always trying to see that program from their perspective and to cater to the needs of our customers as much as we can, while still allowing the program to work for us, both, numbers wise and, with moving product. Because the initial idea of the CSA, it really came from vegetable farms and really creative people where you basically invest in this farm at the beginning of a growing season, and then they ship you a box of whatever they have throughout the year. So it allows the farmer to sort of cash flow as vegetable production. And then he can sort of send what he's got to these folks, and they get good fresh vegetables every week or month. So we sort of took that idea and kind of piggybacked off of the really creative farmers that had pioneered that. And then we just sort of made it work for our business and on the meat side. So we're still refining that constantly. I mean, you get to select your sausages now. It's not just like whatever we throw in there. We develop these little, drop down menus, and you can pause for a month. You can sort of manage your own subscription. We have the different sizes in there. So we're always, taking this feedback and trying to cater, to the customer to make it better. And anytime someone cancels, we reach out and we're like, hey, can you let me know what the issue was? And, we're proud to say most of the time it's just like, I got a freezer full of meat. I've been traveling around or whatever. But we've all been spending a lot more time in our kitchens over the last 10 months.
Oh, that's for sure.
People have really been, enjoying cooking this stuff up. So it's been great.
My brain is spinning. I've already told my wife, Ashley, about this program, and we're thinking about friends who like to cook and like meat. So and I will tell you, too, that, we've been doing the Heaping Spoonful now for about 15 months. And so the first few months, I could say, hey, I'm going to come eat at your place if I hadn't already, and I did it. But now it's like, hey, when this all stops, I'm going to get in my car, and I'm going to come to Mississippi, and I'm going to come to your store, because you've got a farm store right there, and somebody can walk in. You don't want to wait for your box to get there. You don't want to cook it. You can walk into the farm store at Home Place Pastures. You can grab a coffee. You can get a beer. You can get a made-to-order lunch sandwich. Man, the sandwiches look great. I'll probably be in for a fried bologna, by the way. And then you can also buy cuts of meat to go. Is that, COVID-19 notwithstanding, and masks and distancing and all that, is that something you've had for a long time too? And do many people find their way into your store?
No. That's brand new. And, I appreciate you saying that, Kelly, because I know we all have a very long list at this point of when this is all over, I'm going to go do X or,
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, I'm glad to be on your list, and we'd love to have you. And that store, we did have a farm store in the actual plant. So the processing and slaughter facility, it's in the middle of our farm. We built out kind of a corner of that, and we just had a little deli case in there, and it was only open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and we'd sell basically fresh steaks. And that was an effort we kind of sat down. We're like, look, we're wholesaling this stuff to restaurants all over the Southeast, and we don't have any interface for our neighbors to come buy this meat. It's crazy. Like, we're here in the community to do this for the community. So we opened that little store, but it was very limited as what we could do there. It was in like a big metal building. It wasn't very nice. And we saw the potential to serve lunch, which is sort of the ultimate value add. So
sure.
When COVID hit, again, we're dancing, right? We're like, our options are, I made the analogy, we're like swinging from vine to vine over the crocodile pit and running out of vines quickly.
Yeah.
So,
Arms getting tired.
Right. So the farm store was, it was something we always wanted to do. We had this old house on the place my dad built when he was 20 years old. It was the first house he built in the early 60s. And it was kind of falling down. So I tore down some other old cabins that were really falling down. I got some cool old cypress off of them. Got everything from here on the farm, and we fixed this place up. And it's really, and we added a kitchen off the back, which is new. So you get like the history, the vibe of the farm. It's right out in a great location. It's in the middle of the pastures. And now we're really focused on, sort of cultivating the space for people coming to enjoy what we're doing. You can get a beer, you can eat our food, you can hang out, you can get meat for your family. And then you just get more of a sense of what we're doing and why it's so important. We also lead farm tours from that space once a month. Yeah. We do a barbecue pop-up out there once a month. We're big barbecue nerds. And we're just really interested in sort of making this place not just, a place that produces meat, but we want to share that with our community and people visiting and be an educational space too, just to, again, not beat people over the head with like, you should buy local, this stuff is better, blah, blah, blah. But just come out here and check it out and see, the difference of watching these animals being able to exhibit their natural behaviors, see what a healthy farm looks like, and then get to taste it and hang out and have a couple beers while you're doing it. It's a win-win.
Yeah. It sounds fabulous. And, we talked earlier about your sales team that directs sales to restaurants. And then clearly now you've got the direct to consumer sales model that has many tiers to it, including the most straightforward, what we just talked about, your farm store. But clearly you have capacity to produce and sell more because you just recently are about to start a partnership with Benny Keith Foods, which is the company that sponsors Heaping Spoonful. So are they going to just expand you into other markets or handle sales and delivery in the markets you already will? Or will you guys keep doing some of the selling and distributing yourself?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And, this summer we sort of had to look at ourselves in the mirror and have a long conversation about, like, what are we trying to do? We're scrambling to stay alive. What is it really, kind of our 5-year goal here is we're sort of in an impasse where we could really try to scale up and grow our distribution sort of wholesale, or we could really scale down and just sort of be this, boutique farm that people could come and visit, and we would only sell, direct to consumer off the farm, very limited wholesale to local chefs just right around the farm. And I think the whole staff, my family, we all agreed we're so passionate about this type of agriculture that we really want to grow it so we can start proving that this is a viable regional food system, that we can start changing the way that the supply chain of, beef in the Southeast, for example, instead of all these calves getting sold at an auction and getting shipped up to Kansas and Iowa, we're keeping some of those right here at home, finishing them, creating jobs, and making this product as accessible as possible to people in our region. So that was really where we landed, is that we're not done. We're trying to really get this thing going to a bigger volume and to a wider audience. But as I said earlier, distribution, not what we're interested in. So we're we're partnering with Benny Keith to really grow that kind of wholesale distribution side. We're going to have, products that we sell through them. Benny Keith is a wonderful company, wonderful reputation, a lot more resources than our little farm to both sell and distribute this product and open up markets. And then we'll continue focusing on the on-farm tours and direct-to-consumer sales, and that'll sort of be our two sides of the business, wholesale and direct-to-consumer. So I think gradually over the next 6 months, we'll continue servicing some of our local guys ourselves. But our goal, it would be a wonderful day if, we weren't running a route to restaurants at all and everything was being done through one of our distributors. So that's sure. And then the only sales we're doing are the direct to consumer, like the monthly box, the online store, and the on-farm store. So it's really exciting.
Well, I'll tell you,
taking, a big step in that direction.
It's really exciting for me personally, because we all know it's all about me, because I live in Arkansas. I live in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Benny Keith's got great market share here, and they've got a great sales team that will be introducing a lot of the restaurants that we love here and all over Arkansas and also Tennessee and Mississippi to your products. And so all of a sudden we're going to be able to get them in Arkansas, and that makes me very happy. And again, I'm fond of the people here and I'm fond of the company, but I think you'll end up thinking, it's going to be a great way to grow your business without you having to do it all yourself, as you said. So you talked as we opened the podcast about how your part of the home place is different than it was. So as a member of the fifth generation, and you've already mentioned it, I mean, you grew up on the farm. Did you have a lot of duties, or were that pretty much something you were like, hey, look, love being your kid, don't necessarily want to be out farming?
No, that would not have been okay.
Gone over well.
My parents. Yeah, I was very much on the farm. I mean, my siblings and I were kind of thrown into I think the first summer I worked, the full summer, I was 13 years old. So it was really, my parents really valued school and education. My dad worked very hard to get my siblings and I a good education so that we could choose not to farm. Of course, I was the only one dumb enough to come back, but we definitely had that early connection with the place. And I'm telling you, as a teenager, as a boy growing up out here, it was, and learning all these skills on the farm, getting to work alongside, the guys that worked out here, it was just paradise. I mean, it was totally intoxicating for me, and fell in love with my state, fell in love with the music and the culture and the food, and going around to like yard parties and juke joints on the weekends and just working hard all week. I mean, when you're 17, 18 years old, I played guitar poorly and do blues stuff, and we would go around and do that. I mean, it was paradise. And I think that though I didn't want to farm at that time, my connection to Mississippi, I also went to a public school in Mississippi for my last 2 years of high school, magnet school. So the state paid for my education, and, my experiences out here on the farm really tied me to the land. And then, just being so grateful for my area and the culture of my region, I kind of knew deep down, no matter where I went, I'd be circling back this way. So here I am.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you went to college at Dartmouth, and not a lot of small-town Mississippi boys head off to Ivy League schools. So I guess, as you said, your parents valued good education. I'm sure we're proud and happy to be able to make that available to their children. Did you pick Dartmouth? Was that something you knew you wanted to do? Because isn't it in a fairly isolated place? It's not like going to Harvard and being right by Boston.
Well, yeah,
Dartmouth like?
The isolation was nothing new, but
yeah,
I think
exactly.
I wanted to have I wanted to get out of the South. You know, when you're a kid, while I was having all those wonderful experiences, you can't wait to get off the adventure. I wanted to go out west or up north, and I wanted to sort of have this iconic New England education experience. And when I went to Dartmouth to visit, it's a beautiful college. I mean, it's up on a hill. It's right on the Connecticut River, right between Vermont and New Hampshire, and Dartmouth is just on the New Hampshire side. And it was just sort of, the old buildings, the bell tower, the green spread out there. I was like, man, it was just like a painting. So on a whim, like I do most things in my life, I just decided to apply, and I got in, and I was so shocked that I got in that I guess they were looking for some geographical diversity up there. They needed a Mississippi farm boy to round out the quota, I think. So anyway, it was a wonderful.
Yeah, I got and my two older sisters one went to Wellesley and one went to Vassar, and
okay, yeah.
So my dad. Well, cool. My dad didn't think I was getting a great education in Bryan, Arkansas, so he said, you need to go to Phillips Exeter Academy. And I said, oh, Dad, I'm having too much fun. So I went 2 summers. I spent 2 summers at Exeter, New Hampshire, and so got that same feeling. I remember going around the table, and there was a guy I learned later from Mississippi, because when he started talking, I thought he was mocking my Southern accent, but his was even thicker than mine. It's because he's from Mississippi. But anyway, it was cool to come back to Arkansas and have that experience. But between Dartmouth and coming back to the farm, what all did you do in between, and how much of your time did that take? How many years were you not in college and not on the farm?
Maybe not quite long enough in retrospect, but when I graduated, my friends were all going to med school and law school and iBanks in New York, and I didn't want to have anything to do with any of that. So I was not quite done having a good time. So I went to Montana and worked on a guest ranch out there. I basically did dishes and cleaned cabins, and then just like drank and fly fished with all my spare time. So I did that for about 4 months, and then I started feeling a little guilty that I was sort of just having this totally just kind of wasting time out there. So I moved. That's when I wanted to come back to the South really badly, and I'd fallen in love with New Orleans. I had some friends that went to college down there, and would visit a lot and would go down with my family, even, when I was in high school and younger. So I wanted to go there, and it was, of course, Katrina happened, I guess, when was Katrina? 06?
04, yeah.
Or,
04,
5 or 6? Yeah. Somewhere in there. So I this was 2011, and the rebuilding efforts were kind of in full swing. So I joined up with AmeriCorps, and I did a year of an AmeriCorps service term helping to rebuild Katrina victims' houses. I had a lot of carpentry and construction skills just from growing up on the farm. So I did that for a year and really fell in love with the city. And then I went to work right after that for a guy who was kind of butchering and selling meat to chefs. And I really think I was looking for something in the ag space, because I was always trying to find a way to circle back up to Como, to the home place, without being a row crop farmer. And so that was when, I was getting more serious about that, and I was having that time of my life in New Orleans. But I was, 24 at that point, and knew that at some point I was going to have to figure out, what I was going to do with myself. And besides, just work during the week and hang out with my buddies on the weekend. So, anyway, I formulated a business plan at that point, because I really recognized that there was a viable market out there for locally sourced, ethical meat, but the bottleneck was the processing. And I knew that we could design and build our own plant, because, that's what we do. We're farmers. We figure it out up here. And my dad built everything on this place. So we all got really excited about the idea, and it just seemed to work. It was right in line with everything. And I'm just so fortunate that this new market kind of opened up, and that we took the risk and jumped in, and I moved home in 2014 and started the business. So it's been a while, 7 years.
Yeah, that really is. But you carved out quite a niche in your market, and it really hasn't gone unnoticed. I was again looking at your website, and I saw a picture of you standing, and naturally it's COVID times, in a mask on the pages of Food and Wine when the magazine named Home Place Pastures best farm in Mississippi. And that was just in July 2020, and that's one of just many accolades you've received, and that's got to be gratifying, and surely can't hurt your business. I mean, again, it's crazy times now, but people take note of those kinds of things like Food and Wine.
Oh yeah, it certainly doesn't hurt. And the funny thing about that is we didn't even know that was coming out or that we were being considered. I mean, we just saw it at the same time as everyone else. When you're having a tough day and like pops up on your phone, the whole staff started freaking out. I mean, we were all,
oh, that's great.
Yeah, everyone was, it's just a thrill, it's such a thrill getting that kind of recognition. And it's very validating. I mean, that's certainly not every day. We usually live in the problems, Kelly. We're just getting confronted by all the things that.
How do we get these figured out? Right.
So it's nice to take a little bit of time to be like, okay, we are actually like doing something here that's kind of working and people are noticing. So
that is cool. I know that validation is super important because you can get so inwardly focused because it's so much work to do what you're doing, and to have someone looking from afar going, you're doing a great job. So, well, listen, congratulations for that. And I really appreciate you being my guest today on Heaping Spoonful. Continued good luck as you grow your business and the pandemic lets loose a little bit. And like I told you, don't be surprised when I pop in your farm store one of these days. I couldn't tell you. Go back and look at the list of Heaping Spoonfuls, and you'll recognize several outstanding Mississippi restaurants from Cleveland to Oxford to other spots. And I'm probably going to gain 10 pounds in Mississippi alone. That's going to be worth it. So, and I appreciate all you listeners. I really do. We get good comments. We're getting a lot of downloads, and I appreciate you listening to Heaping Spoonful. Remember, new episodes are posted the first and third Tuesday of each month. So keep an eye out and ear out for them. And thanks, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.